Hello and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Adam's Music Box. Now, for those who are longtime listeners of the show, you'll know that I think that time is an artificial construct that in general has hindered our ability to pursue our creativity, to exercise our compassion, and to view the world in circumspection. I point to the great historian and philosopher Spengler, who pointed out the differences in attitudes between cultures that had zero as a mathematical concept and those that did not, noting poignantly that the ancient Hellenic world, particularly the scholars of Athens, did not have zero. And this was something that resulted in Athenians seeing the world more as a series of parables, a wheel with spokes, rather than a timeline, a Faustian timeline. And so I'd like to explore that through the lens of Tiffany, the shopping mall singer of the 1980s, because perceptions of her and the culture which she came to represent from the point of view of music have changed dramatically since her heyday in the mid-late 1980s. Now, when Tiffany burst onto the scene singing a song, her most famous song is a cover by Tommy James and the Shondells. I think We're Alone Now, one of their earlier hits before getting all crimsony and clovery. The perception among hardcore music aficionados was that her music was shallow, her presentation was banal, and she came to represent the commodification of music in the extreme. That, a record is no more important than a hot dog on the stick at the food court or the throwaway cheap sunglasses, ZZ Top reference, that you could get at the store next door. Since then, though, people have taken a very different view of what she represented. And this is generally because people now look at shopping mall culture, which really reached a sociological apex in the 80s, although it continued to grow in other ways in the 90s and into the early 2000s. They look at that now with nostalgia. So while the prevailing self-appointed, of course, observers of culture in the 1980s viewed the shopping mall as a kind of banal experience, now people look at it as one of the lost places where people from both cities and suburbs were in a similar social setting and interacting with one another. People talk about the atomization that we have today and compare it with the socialized hive of the shopping center. And so, Tiffany's place in this discussion is very interesting because one could make an argument that the shopping mall of today is TikTok and that young people congregate there digitally and discover new music there. And as a result, the first person to say, well, Spotify and the rest of it are all well and good for established artists, but if you really want to break through to a young audience, you really ought to go to TikTok. And Tiffany, by going into the shopping malls of her era, really did that. And so, in this sense, well, again, the music isn't anything that is musicologically important, but I do think that the phenomenon of Tiffany is anthropologically important because it demonstrates that if a young musician wanted, yes, a gimmick, a tool to be seen and heard, the shopping center, the shopping mall was the place to do it in the 80s. Now that place is online, and TikTok has managed to be the coolest of the shopping malls, where I suppose Facebook is sort of, the hardware section at the back of a Sears, which Sears wasn't exactly modern even by 80s standards. So it just goes to show you that time alters perceptions of everything. What was once considered sort of nouveau, if not nouveau riche, and not garish and plastic and false, now is being referred to by today's self-appointed cultural observers as authentic and innocent and wholesome and fun social interaction. So it just goes to show you the things that are being criticized today will one day be held up as paragons of virtue. And that's why time is a bitch. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Take care.